Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Conversations. Today, Carrie and I are going to talk about fertility how circadian biology, leptin, these sorts of things play into it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have a huge backstory when it comes to this, so feel free to share that. But, I would say how many years ago now, at least a year ago, you and I came together and said, this needs to be taught in a course, right? We need to.
It was 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. Yeah.
Right. And so we basically have created a course on how to optimize your fertility through the lens of circadian and quantum biology. And we've even got modules in there for practitioners as well, because we truly believe that this is such a missing factor that is not discussed at all when people are trying to conceive, when they're preparing to conceive, when they're having difficulties conceiving, when they're going through IVF. I mean, if you're not doing these basic foundational things, your chances, I think, are much lower of actually conceiving. Yep. And you're the perfect example of that.
Yep, exactly. That's, we get asked about hormones all the time, and we'll maybe go into a more in-depth hormone episode for our perimenopause and menopause ladies, but in the future. But right now, I think the fertility thing is huge because that was something I discovered when I was going through infertility was, number one, these fertility treatments are not a given. They're kind of being put out there now as like, it's going to work. It's a thing. But I've had so many women come to me and say they've tried IVF and they've tried these other things and they haven't worked. And practitioners that they don't know what to do other than more supplement protocols, more hormones, more detox, adding hormones, adding this, detoxing that. And so I do think the practitioner education is really important as well, because we need more practitioners that understand why fertility can be supported through these very natural, easy things. And then, of course, because we want to help more women and couples.
And men too. We've had men go through this course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have had men go through it.
So I got the lessons pulled up. Let's just kind of do a brief primer on each one. If you want to, we can talk let's talk about just the general gist of why circadian rhythm really supports fertility.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and before you do that, just anyone who's watching who might be interested in this, just this month for October, we're offering 50% off of our on-demand fertility course. We've never done that before. I don't know when we're going to do it again or if we'll do it again, but if this resonates with you and you want to check that out, we'll put the link in the show notes. But
and what prompted me, Sarah, because you and I were chatting about that, I kind of threw that idea, at you and said, hey, what do you think about this? What prompted me was the fact that, it's not rare for us to get an email that's from someone who says, oh, here's my baby. I took your quantum fertility course.
All the time we get those.
And so it's one of those things where, this stuff really, truly matters. And it's truly life transforming for people when they apply it and then they conceive. And then it's transforming for us when we get to see these beautiful pictures of these lovely little snuggly babies that have been, conceived hopefully because of some of the support received in this course. So
yeah, we've got a lot of quantum fertility babies, and that's what this is about, is the people that really want to have children that have not been able to, and they're just in this really bad spot. And I think you and I both get going on Alex's podcast. I got a barrage of emails from people who are like really desperate to apply this information in the framework of fertility. Because my leptin course, I've got a lot of leptin babies, but this is like fertility, specific to fertility and how to apply this information.
Yes. And leptin is one of the, we have a whole lesson on leptin and fertility. But let's start with light first. Okay. So I think very few people, when they think about like, okay, for hormones, so it's my reproductive organs that's all I have to tend to is what's going on with my reproductive organs. And it's like, wait a second, what starts the hormone cascade in the first place that become all the steroid hormones that your body then uses to make enough progesterone, have a balanced amount of testosterone, estrogen, that starts with DHEA, right? That starts with light. I didn't know this until I started studying mitochondria more closely, that the mitochondria are responsible for making pregnenolone.
Pregnenolone, yep.
And that's for for people who are just listening, maybe don't realize, if you've been in, maybe in fertility treatments for quite some time, you know pregnenolone. Right. But what pregnenolone does is that's the main steroid hormone that then can become all the other sex hormones. And if you're not making that adequately in the first place, no wonder why potentially progesterone is low, or then there's issues with imbalanced amounts, or, AMH, or, there's a lot of other hormones that depend on having the correct hormone signaling from that steroid pathway. And those mitochondria will make that pregnenolone in response to sunrise light.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why this is a crucial part of optimizing hormones, period, whether you're trying to conceive or you're in perimenopause or menopause, because your body still has ways of making these hormones. And if you don't have that foundational piece down, you will struggle with hormone imbalance eventually if you're not already doing so. So that signaling is absolutely crucial. And then the other part of what we teach in week 1 is mindset and understanding, like, this side of allowing your body to feel safe. Because if you're in a constant state of fight flight, your mitochondria are not going to do what they need to do in regards to hormones as well, right?
Absolutely. So so the mitochondria they need to feel, I say, safe, secure, nourished, right? Your body needs to have those signals in order to divvy up those hormones. Once you receive that light signal for your mitochondria to say, okay, make pregnenolone, the body could very easily take that pregnenolone and funnel it to cortisol.
You can steal. That's what it's called, pregnenolone steal. Right. It's like, you're stressed out. This is why I always tell people, you got to eat the breakfast, do some grounding, like keep your morning as restorative as possible, because it is going to impact how much of that pregnenolone goes to the cortisol pathway or goes to your sex steroid hormone pathway. And so people underestimate it. They're like, I need to take a supplement,
or I need to do that boot camp workout. I need to work out hard first thing in the morning. Right. I need to be fasted, right? Because you hear benefits of autophagy. It's like, but wait, the most important thing the body needs is, yes, the light signals. Mm-hmm. And with that, it also then needs to feel safe. It's not going to feel safe if we're not eating that breakfast. And that's going to lead a lot to that leptin lesson. It's not going to feel safe if honestly, you almost have to view this through the lens of, ancestral built-in pathways. Yes. If I wake up in the morning and the first thing that I do is run 7 miles, the body's like, who's chasing her? Where's the threat? Where's the threat? You know what I mean? So it's like, we have to kind of, yes, exercise is important and can be done in a very healthy way, in a very supportive way. But at the same time, there are ways that you need to maybe have some nuance with it when it comes to assessing how the body's going to take those hormones, that pregnenolone, and divvy it up either into something like cortisol for a survival threat, or to the hormones of fertility to say optimize conception.
Yeah, exactly. That is so important. Again, above supplement protocols, above anything else you do. If this is not happening, you're not going to make enough DHEA. You're not going to make enough progesterone, these hormones that are really crucial in allowing your body to make a baby, hold a pregnancy, have optimal egg quality. All of those things are really, really, really important. And mitochondria are, the health of your mitochondria is also extremely important when it comes to your egg quality, because you'll see things about, this supplement improves egg quality. This supplement improves egg quality. And it's like, well, the amount of money I spent on freaking CoQ10 and Emin and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, I can't continue to just buy all these supplements and they weren't working. They clearly weren't doing what they needed to do because I didn't have these foundations down correctly.
Well, right. And so when we talk about mitochondria are important for egg quality, what is it about the mitochondria? Mitochondria are responsible for making water. And that water becomes that exclusion zone water, which is energy. Which is why you have a high energy demand in the oocytes, in the eggs themselves. It's got a ton of mitochondria in there, up to 1 million, because basically once the sperm penetrates the egg and the conception takes place, there's a lot of energy that's needed in those growing dividing cells for them to develop into a baby. And so it's one of those things where mitochondria are essential. And what do we know through our lens is, yes, can CoQ10, can that support mitochondria and their ability to make water and ATP? Yeah, sure. But the light that is entering your eyes and touching your skin, in my opinion, is by far one of the most important things you can do for those mitochondria. So they get the correct signal that they need to, like, how much energy should I make when? Because the mitochondria in different tissues make different energy depending on what time of day the body is sensing. And then secondarily, to optimize specifically that water production of mitochondria, we need red and near infrared light. And that's what we're going to be getting through the natural light on our skin. The imbalanced blue light makes it very hard for the mitochondria to make adequate water and hydration and therefore energy. I just gave a talk. That was the title of my talk at the water conference that Sarah, I just came back from over in Lisbon. And literally the blue light environment that we're under these days makes it very hard for the mitochondria to do their thing for us.
Yeah, and our whole first week is on circadian rhythms and how important those are. But you always also need to look at, and we talk about this in the course extensively, the environment that you're putting your body in throughout the day. Like it is important. And we have some, for people that work in offices, because we had some school teachers, we had people that don't have the option to quit their job, right? They still have to be in these environments. So how they can mitigate that, how they can go about that. And we've done episodes about that on the podcast as well before, because everyone doesn't have the luxury of just like sitting outside all day.
No, true. Or taking these periodic, 15-minute breaks where you can bathe in natural sunlight and stuff. So we get it. So we essentially have, no matter what you're doing, what your line of work is, we've got nuanced options for everyone when it comes to the light exposures.
Yeah. Just saying it is possible, because I think a lot of people will throw up the well, I just have to quit my job and this, that, and the other if this is ever going to work. And I don't think that has to be true necessarily. It really doesn't. But if you are someone who's been struggling with fertility, if you have to get to a place where you do have to make some changes. And that, I think about that a lot, because people ask me, how did you get pregnant in your 40s? And how do you maintain your physique now in your 45 so easily? And I'm like, I didn't say like everything I do is easy. Now that I have it streamlined, it feels easy to me, but it was a big change. I did have to do things that were uncomfortable. I did have to be willing to go out on a limb and try different things. And so I think that doesn't get taught. And people are like, oh, I've been doing the sunrise thing. And I'm like, well, that's a start.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got to look at the whole thing. We got to look at nutrition. We got to look at your light environment during the day, your stress level. Because as we just talked about, if your body thinks you're under threat, what's going to happen to all that pregnenolone? Right? It's not going to go where it needs to go in order for you to have healthy hormone balance. This goes for fertility. This goes for perimenopause and menopause. It's everyone.
It goes for healing in general too, because if your mitochondria think that if there's a stressor, your mitochondrial, their ability to make energy for you literally goes down by 15 to 20%. We're talking a major drop. Yeah. And so that means that you're not necessarily going to have the adequate energy production to heal a tissue. So this is why these are foundational, right? And specifically with this course, that we do answer all the questions through the lens of fertility. Because Sarah, I mean, if you're new to this podcast, Sarah's been through failed IVFs and understands this idea of Sarah is so good in this course about, and there's the Q&As that we've done previously.
There's 35 hours worth of Q&As that you get to watch where we've answered a ton of questions.
Yeah. And so it's like, people come, my AMH is this, or, my FSH, like, we look at all of that through all those fertility markers through this lens as well. And Sarah does a great job at breaking that down.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully this is giving people some hope. And again, like, even if you're not trying to get pregnant, to know that you're not as powerless as a lot of people out there would have you to believe.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, completely. We've seen it enough times to know that, your body is completely capable when you give it the correct signals and the ability to make adequate energy. So I distilled it down to this, Sarah. Like, this was literally the slide at the presentation that I gave. And it was like it's a Venn diagram, right? Intersecting circles. And one of them said information and the other said energy. And when those align, you get health. When there's a lack of energy or when there's chaotic information, the body is just trying to adapt with what it has. And so dis-ease or infertility is simply the body not getting the adequate energy or information. And that's really what this quantum fertility boils down to.
Exactly. Or chaotic energy.
Energy. Exactly.
Which,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. I was just saying, so we also talk speaking of mitochondria, we do talk extensively about the nuances of how to support the mitochondria. Let's say if you're trying to conceive, but also then supporting the mitochondria in your 2-week wait. Yes. So that's something that, we talk a lot about the 2-week wait, like should I do red light therapy during my 2-week wait? Should I do cold therapy during my 2-week wait? What about deuterium depletion? So there's a lot of, specific to fertility, there's nuance when it comes to these things, optimizing your breathing mechanics, which we talk about. Okay, anytime, right? But you may want to, there is
cold
nuance.
Therapy, sauna.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to what we're going to do. That can be, they are highly beneficial strategies, but not necessarily at certain times.
Castor oil. I don't even know if I can talk about, can we talk about that on the internet anymore? Or are we going to get censored? I don't know. I've heard a big
information warning. Yeah, unfortunately, Queen of Thrones is, they're coming down hard on castor oil companies.
Are they really on her?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What's going on with that? I'm just curious.
Well, we just got emails from them saying, so I have their product, their castor oil, which I love, right? And their packs and stuff are phenomenal in my product recommendations guide. And they emailed us as affiliates to say, hey, you have to remove any language around health, healing, anything about castor oil being healing, basically.
Oh my God.
Even though it's got potentially thousands of years of use, it's
wow.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what you gonna do?
At this point, I'm like,
not surprised.
If there's warnings like that about something, I'm going to actually go harder towards it.
100%. It's one of my barometers for being like, I got to learn more about that.
Yeah. Like with homeopathy, that's what got me interested more in homeopathy was like, I think all the Whole Foods were trying to pull it off the shelves. So you can buy it at Whole Foods. I'm like,
and then I heard, did you hear this? I'm drawing a blank. Is it Boyron, the blue one, the homeopathy one? I heard that they were bought by a big pharmaceutical company.
No.
I know. Yeah. I know. Right. Because it's like, so who knows? Maybe nothing's going to happen, but like,
hopefully,
you just makes me pause, pause. Yeah. That's why at water too, like I've dove so deep into water because it's considered woo or it's pseudoscience or I'm a quack for teaching this stuff. The number of quantum physicists who I interacted with at this water conference who understand all this stuff was beautiful to see. We're talking about people who did a ton of their own traditional line of study to all of a sudden be like, oh, but wait, there's water and this is how water behaves. And this is why water is so important. So it's like, love it. I love to see it.
Yeah, I do too. I think and I love talking about water. To me, it's so much more empowering. We have a whole week on water in the quantum fertility course because it is very important for improving your hormone balance, hormones, fertility, all of those things. And so I love talking about that so much more than I love talking about food. We do have a leptin section, nutrition section. I actually added my leptin diet program into the course so people can, and my seasonal food sourcing course into the fertility course now. So that information is in there as well. But it's very simple. It's like what you just said about energy and information. If your food is out of season, high deuterium, when the UV index is not what it's supposed to be to grow that specific food, it's chaotic information, right? And so what do you think is going to happen? You may be able to get away with it when you're younger, but at some point it's going to show up if you're bombarding yourself with chaotic information that could look like food, that could look like light, that could look like sound even as well. Living next door to the neighbor from we won't even go there today, but all these things do play a role in how coherent your body is and how well you're going to be able to have balanced hormones, health, longevity, all of that.
Oh, totally. Totally. Absolutely. And so with the whole water thing too, I think most people assume when we talk about, we're talking about water, it's like,
what do I drink?
Yeah, what do I drink? And we do. We talk about about how to revitalize, basically vitalize your devitalized water, which is what tap water, RO, and distilled water would be. So here's another. This is the one. I love this image, right? This is Dr. Konstantin Karatkov from the conference, and I love it when he uses what's called a gas discharge visualization, or like a biowell camera, Kirlian photography. And what that takes is that takes a picture of something, and it measures what's called like their plasma energy field around them. So it's been called the aura or the biofield. It's been called a lot of things, and it's just basically light that's not seen. And the amount of this light, that how big it is, how robust it is, basically determines the vitality or the life force energy in something. It could be a human, it could be an apple, and you'll see the life force energy, the vitality of something once it's fresh picked. Huge. And then, after 24 hours, less, after 48, less. So like you see it shrink. And so it's a fun way to visualize the energetic quality of something. And the reason why I love talking about revitalizing our water is because distilled water, which is very pure chemically, is energetically nothing, right? It's same with RO water, tap water too, right? It's just so devitalized. So while that's why, yes, it's pure chemically, energetically, it needs to be enhanced. And that's where you see the before and afters of structuring the water, or even adding minerals enhance that plasma, energy aura around the water. And then structuring it, of course, just made that beautiful energy grow so tremendously. So that's why those are things that we include in how to take your water and make it energetic again. Because I truly believe that there's a lot about structured water and improving fertility. And I think a lot of it, there's not a ton of research. There's interesting research indicating, mainly in animals, that there's the potential for drinking structured water regularly to improve fertility. And so I think that this ultimately can translate to humans, especially if these studies get done, if the correct studies get done. Because when you drink that structured water, you're giving your body energy and information, right? Beautiful information and beautiful energy. The body says, okay, I know what we can do with this. And it, again, doesn't feel like it's under a threat. Whereas when we drink something like distilled water, or especially tap water, so chaotic in terms of that information.
So Carrie, I don't know about you, but I'm doing a couple little trips this summer. And what is the one thing that you're definitely going to be bringing with you on your packing list?
I love portable red light therapy for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yes. You can't underestimate, honestly, what red light therapy can quote unquote treat or support when you're away from like eating something that disagrees with you, to like your kid falls and scrapes the knee and you want to do a little extra repair and support, to a headache, to an earache, to like you name it, and just then as general maintenance, right? Or like, let's say you're at the beach, you want to precondition your skin, right? All these things, and or
you're traveling on an airplane and you want to kind of offset some of that mitochondrial damage that's going to naturally happen from being in a plane. Like I know Dr. Sarah brings her this is our Bond Charge Mini, and you can use the code QuantumPod to save on yours. But I know she will just kind of put it with thyroid, right? Because when you're in an airplane, you are exposed to high levels of non-native EMF, and a little panel could be a great way to support your mitochondria, to make more exclusion zone water so that there's a little bit of a protective barrier when you're in those high stress environments, right?
Exactly. And then also in a pinch, I'll use that, like, let's say in a hotel room or something, to turn on a light if I need to, right? Right. It's just in a pinch, it's a really good way just kind of almost like act as a flashlight or illuminate the space at night, if you need to for some reason. So I have found so many uses for that portable red light therapy.
Yep. It's awesome. So if you are interested in one of these, you can use the code Quantum Pod. This is by Bond Charge. They are sponsoring the podcast. We really appreciate that. And check them out. There's a link down in the show notes. Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the things that I changed in the fertility journey that I kind of found on my own. I interviewed the guys from Analima and I was like, oh, wow, okay. There's something to this,
Yeah, for sure.
And I had that wand. And I think the wand is, we talked about this before, it's kind of a gateway to understanding how you can influence your water through intention, through thought. I think that was a big part of things as well, which we go over quantum mindset and visualization, because that's a really big piece as well for people. But that for me was kind of a gateway with not only drinking the structured water and revitalizing my body that way, but I think it also helped me connect to that other piece of visualization and just understanding I could influence things by thought.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's, behind the scenes when we were just kind of chatting, which we always do right before we press start. I was saying, you're with people who understand water when the atmosphere is loving and compassionate and joyful, and, because of how responsive water is. And if we're full of water, then it only makes sense that what we say, think, do, who are around, the types of emotions that are, in our environment are impacting us on a moment by moment basis. So it was so refreshing to be around just such lovely people who really, truly, I think, got it when it came to water. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. And part of our conversation is like, well, if someone has to be mean and egotistical and hateful towards others, they probably don't understand water. End of story. And it's just, yeah.
And listen, we're not perfect, you and I, right? But like my default is so much better than it has been in previous years in terms of, I just feel so much more grounded in compassion these days.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely get thrown off. Like, definitely. But you may have a reason that you're going to talk about why lately you've been thrown off, maybe at some point in the future. At some point in the future.
That's a little,
precursor to talking about hormones. I just, we'll
leave it at that.
Stay tuned.
Do you know something
evolving?
Yeah, Ralph. Yeah, always. I appreciate the fact that you're like your own guinea pig when it comes just
my own detriment sometimes.
So speaking of water though, and here's another intersection with this, non-native EMFs and water. So we talk all about non-native EMFs in a way that we don't want to be fearful.
No.
But at the same time, like, and I would never do this, but like if I was trying to conceive or if I was pregnant, regardless, at any time, I would never have a laptop or my cell phone on my physical body, or, there's things.
Or an Apple Watch or whatever those things are called. No,
smartwatch, Fitbits,
I don't care.
Bluetooth stuff. Yeah. Oh gosh, I keep reverting back to the water conference just because.
I love it.
There is a woman a researcher was there that I was sitting near. Her name is Beverly Rubik, that she is like the person who coined the term biofield. So like, such an amazing OG researcher on all of these cool things. And her latest area that she's been speaking a ton about is how these devices create chaos in the biofield. And if that field is literally information that's flowing into our physical body through the water in our body, but of course, if we're feeding our body with chaos, the body's going to respond chaotically. And that's not what we want. Going back to that safety signal, that's not what we want when it comes to optimizing fertility.
Yeah. I mean, this Dr. Gazvini that got on me about the AirPods when I was trying to get pregnant, and I was like, are they really that bad? And he just gave it to me. I was like, never. Okay, I'm done. I will never use them, because I used to love, where I'd put in one and get the cleaning done, listen to the dishes. So convenient. Loved it. And then after it took one conversation with Corey, and I was like,
he's the perfect person to have that conversation. Like, no nonsense. Here's the 14 reasons why you should never.
Let me just tell you the truth about this. Like, okay,
in such a kind, loving Corey way. Though, for
such
sure.
a very kind, loving, amazing human, but he is not going to
shoot it straight.
Is not going to BS you. Like, yeah, it's just, he's going to tell you the truth. And yeah, sometimes it hurts. It hurts. I mean, but that's like this stuff. Cause again, people will look at me and be like, oh, it's so easy for you. So I'm like, trust me, I had to monumentally change some things. And yeah, do I sometimes want to like eat candy and watch Netflix until 11 o'clock at night and have a glass of wine? Yeah, sometimes the urge will come to me to do things like that. But I know that's just poison for my body. That whole behavior pattern, all of it. It's a dead end. And so we have to sometimes make hard choices and change things, be willing to. So.
Oh yeah. And again, what the way that we teach this is through the lens of we've been there. We know how much easier it is to wear iPads or to use your laptop in this way and not, but like at the same time, we've gone through it, like hardwiring, like this. You kidding me? Do you know how hard wiring stuff took a lot? It did. It took effort, but and it wasn't perfect at first. Cords running everywhere. My husband being like, "What are these cords all over?" Right? Like, just trust me, And then, so we've been there, and we don't want it to be scary, but I think we need to be aware that there is a ton of research. I'm shocked this isn't a realization. There's a ton of research about infertility, both male and female infertility in response to exposure to non-native EMF radiation.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a whole module on that. And I also popped into the course and put in a bunch of stuff around harmonizing as well, because I think that is also something that can be very helpful. I think you got to do both. We've had this conversation 100%. Before. 100%. We don't want to say the building biologists are obsolete. They definitely have a place, and it's about doing what you can, mitigating what you can, and then harmonizing. I think
you can't shield everything. You just can't. No, and if you do, people are gonna be like, "Stop talking about the water conference. This is about fertility."
No, it's okay.
But an underlying theme that I saw in Dr. Luc Montagnier's research, which we can talk about if anyone wants to, but also then all in the additional research that I've seen is that if water is going to hold information appropriately, and gather the coherent information from our environment. So, for example, the love in our environment, it has to be exposed to the Schumann resonance. Mm-hmm. And so people who have been kept in a completely shielded room went literally, they emoted and they started to ache and they couldn't move. Like they were crying uncontrollably after hours. This is a fascinating research. I don't know if it was ever done ever again, because I don't know if you can get a volunteer, but literally we need to be connected to all of those fields. And we don't want to shield ourselves from those, right? We want to be connected to the coherent information from our environment. So yes, my mitigation strategy is less shield. It's more distance myself, hardwire, why put on airplane mode, right? Download things. Like that's definitely my mitigation strategy, main mitigation strategy. And then I think there are some very legitimate harmonizing solutions these days, from biogeometry to cosmic tower. I know there's actually there's way more than that, but those are the two that are typically my go-tos because of our experiences with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I just had this conversation in my group, and she had a building biologist come out and found her bedroom has a lot of non-native EMF. And so she's like, should I do shielding paint? Should I get a canopy? Should I do this? She's like, I've got a cosmic tower, but the building biologist, of course, like turned his nose up at that. I'm like, look, you have to, if the building biologist should be able to help you mitigate your bedroom, if they're going to pay you to like get you all freaked out about it, they should be offering you some solutions.
Yeah.
I would not recommend a Faraday cage for the bedroom. I personally don't like those for what you just mentioned. And also, so if they're not grounded properly, they can actually pull dirty electricity in. Like there's a whole bunch of issues with those. And so I'm like, listen, the biology of belief also comes into play here. Mm-hmm. And if you believe your harmonizing stuff doesn't work, guess what your body is going to interpret? Like it's,
Yep. Intention is huge. Belief and intention is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, I'm hoping one of these days the building biologists really start to dive into these things. I mean, if Dr. Karim was able to harmonize an entire
city, right,
of its non-native EMFs that were causing harm not only to humans but to the wildlife, and then after he harmonized it, the incidence of headache and tinnitus went away completely. The admittances to mental hospitals went down drastically, and the birds started returning. The creatures started to come back. I mean, like, it's possible. It's just a difference between understanding, like, let me measure with my, what can I measure with my device? Whereas unfortunately with harmonizing, you were like, where's my pendulums? You can't measure it, right? You need to be able to measure things like BG3 life force energy, or use a neutral pendulum and show someone's biofield energetically enhanced with, let's say, indigo gabbro, in it, right? Did you go?
I'm always holding it if I'm down. Always.
I know, I do too. I don't have it with me today because it's in my bag from being on an airplane and in the conference and stuff like that. But yeah, there's something about that indigo gabbro that just feels so good. I measured Sarah Pugh's biofield at the conference with and without the indigo gabbro, and it just with the Cosmo Tower, she had the mini there too. It really enhanced it as well. So like that's how you measure the effects of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's not going to be with a meter. And so that's where the disconnect is right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
going back to fertility, what else do we want to talk about?
Well, we really emphasize sleep, right? Because of how important that is in so many ways. Melatonin for the mitochondria, for healing the body, for supporting, conception, fertility, growth, optimum pregnancy. I mean, there's so many things there that I think are important, and oftentimes, again, overlooked as well. And so we do dive deep into, what we would call how to have the best sleep you could possibly have.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that was one of the things when I was on my fertility journey, was like, I was being told to take melatonin supplements because that would enhance my egg quality, which I just don't tolerate melatonin. I've talked about that a bunch of times on the show before. It gives me the literal worst nightmares ever. So why not, instead of taking melatonin, improve your endogenous production of it? And there are lots of ways to do that are completely overlooked by people. It's like you tell a woman to take a bunch of melatonin, but you're not asking her, hey, are you wearing blue blockers after sunset? Hey, are you getting infrared light exposure? Are you going outside? Are you going out at UVA rise to get, serotonin production that gets recycled into that night's melatonin? Like, there's so many things you can do to enhance your own endogenous melatonin production rather than opting for a supplement. And yeah, it just drives me a little bit crazy.
Oh yeah, totally. And listen, you and I, we don't love supplementing anything, right? You get it. I think the jury for me for strategic melatonin supplementation for, let's say, someone who is in their late 80s and is suffering from neurocognitive impairment, right? I think that there can be a time and a place for it, but that's in an individual who's not potentially able to implement all the strategies that we want. Maybe they're not as mobile. Maybe they require, nursing care, right? So their light environment is not going to be great. Maybe they have a hard time seeing at night, so they're not going to want to wear orange tone blue blockers or red tone. Maybe they can't go outside because they're less mobile. I mean, so like there are instances for me where there's potential, but I want you to optimize your own production, whenever possible.
Do that first.
100%, because supplementing, number one, with melatonin supplements, what you see is not always what you get in terms of the amount of melatonin they put in those things. Deuterium, the deuterium on that melatonin changes how your body might transform it or utilize it. So there's a lot about melatonin supplementation that is very, very, very flawed, especially in light of not optimizing your own endogenous production, both pineal and subcellular melatonin. I have a feeling if people optimized pineal and subcellular melatonin and then they needed maybe their body did need some form of melatonin supplementation, it would be in the likes of like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 milligrams, as opposed to these kids tablets these days that I'm saying that contain 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams of melatonin. Yeah. It's like, what?
Yeah. I completely agree. Let's work on the foundations first. And then if it's still an issue, then okay. But And yeah, I'm with you on older people, and possibly looking at doing a little supplementation there. That is definitely something that I'm like open to. I'm open to listening to that conversation and to seeing how that works with people. But for a woman, of my age, trying to get pregnant, trying to optimize fertility, you likely haven't hit that stage yet where melatonin production is down, unless you're just in the wrong environment all the time.
Right. Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah. And we talk about cold as well.
Cold. Yeah.
That was one of my strategies for pregnancy, was cold therapy, doing some cold plunging. So we talk about how to do that in a way that is fertility promoting. Because if you go out and look at the big conversation about cold therapy, there's a lot of people that say never ever do cold therapy because it's going to ruin your hormones. And there are definitely some people, maybe like if you have low leptin, that might want to avoid doing a lot of cold exposure. Right. But there's a lot of women that I think can benefit from doing it in a nuanced way.
I was going to say, sometimes, and you also unfortunately see a lot of influencers who it's like, more cold every day, cold for 20 minutes, days. Cold. Yeah.
I see them doing twice a day. I'm like, oh, Lord, have mercy. Bad idea.
Yeah. To say cold, to say one or the other, like, yeah, I have unfortunately heard people say that cold has no effect on hormones. And it's like, I've seen the exact opposite. I've literally seen leptin tank and therefore fertility tank. Maybe not after a month of it, maybe not for 6 months.
Over time. Yeah.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. What else do we put in there? I'm trying to think of what else is in there.
I mean, I also just want everyone to know that if you'll get, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll get the practitioner lens as well, regardless of if you're a practitioner or not. So we recorded specific lessons for practitioners, but so many people who have been through this journey, they're almost at the practitioner level when it comes to their knowledge of, hormones, IVF, health, all those things. And so I would encourage you that if you're interested in listening to because the practitioner lens on these things, we do give a little bit more scientific information. We do talk a little bit more about the nuance of when to use it with one client versus another, and so feel free to listen to that as well. And this is a safe place to say this. We did talk about give some information on spike protein.
Yes, we do. There's a protocol in there as well. So
it's the spike and it's not just the spike. It also is the lipid the lipid carrier that I think accumulates in the ovaries in particular that the body needs to get rid of. So
yeah. I think that's important. And we also talk about deuterium. I put my deuterium guide with deuterium food list in there, and just some nuance around deuterium depletion, because that was another thing that I implemented. My cortisol course is in there, red light therapy course, because red light therapy is something that I used. And we have a lot of women that have done the fertility course that have used red light therapy, because there is some really great scientific research to show that it can improve egg quality, gut health, all of those things. And so that's in there also.
And again, again, we're finding, and we've talked with red light therapy a ton on this show, we're finding that people are starved for red light therapy, but there is nuance. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just through this month, through October, if you're interested, that's going to be 50% off. We'll put a link in the show notes and in the pinned comment. And we'll do this whole perimenopause, reluctantly menopause hormone chat at some point in the future.
The crazy thing about it though, too, there's some strategies that I love with this, but interestingly, and have I said this on the show? I know I've said this to you before, is that like, there's literally civilizations, cultures, populations that have no word for menopause.
Right.
Or because the symptoms of it don't exist, or they view it and they actually view it with joy as a time for another transition. It's like going from child rearing to wisdom, or, a change. Like there's emotional shifts, energetic shifts that you'll see in different cultures, where I just kind of wish that we weren't so reluctant to get to that point. Or I feel like there's a lot of emotional fear or anxiety about it that I think drives things and makes it worse.
Yeah. Agree 100%. That's
this eternal youthfulness. Like, unfortunately, there's messages out there that you hear. It's like, oh, you have to maintain your fertility levels your whole life or you're going to be in big time trouble. And it's like, well,
I'm sorry. There's things that are inevitable, which are aging, going through menopause. All of those things are inevitable. And it's so funny when you see people online, like making like, oh, you're old. Like as a, like, do you think you are not going to ever get old? Like, this is an insult to call someone old, like, because you think it's not going to happen to you. All right. Have fun with that. Have fun with that one. Yeah. So I feel like we need to have a better conversation around these things, and one that doesn't put pressure on women so much, because yeah, I'm definitely navigating some of those things myself. And yeah, we'll talk more in a future episode.
We will. And I am going to bring in some of my herbalism stuff too. I do like the lens of an herbalist, Susan Weed, and how she describes it in one of her books. I think it's gives it a new energy to menopause.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that too. All right. Well, until next time, we will talk more soon.
Bye.